Now we have the CEO of New Horizon Aircraft, Mr. Brandon Robinson. New Horizon Aircraft is based in Lindsay, Canada, and is an aerospace company focused on designing and developing hybrid electric vertical takeoff and landing eVTOL aircraft for the regional air mobility market. The Cavorite X7 is a 7-seat aircraft, combines vertical takeoff capabilities with conventional flight efficiency, aiming to serve applications like medical evacuation, disaster relief, and regional transport with up to 30% lower emissions. The company was founded in 2013. It leverages patented HOVR HOVR wing technology, which we'll hear more about, and is advancing toward certification through active prototype testing and strategic partnerships. New Horizon has 39 million shares outstanding, trades $1.65 for a $65 million market cap, $8 million of net cash for a $57 total enterprise value. We'll start off with a presentation from Brandon, and then we'll go into some Q&A. Brandon?
Testing, testing. Oh, look at that. That is slick. Whoever helped me out with the mic system, really appreciate it. I'm a walker and a talker, so I tend to move away from those, the mic. Okay, so thanks, Tony. Really appreciate it. I get the first slot post-lunch. All right, so drink up that coffee. The sugar lull kicks in. Really appreciate it. Also, I was told I had a 15-minute slot. So in good military fashion, Air Force pilot, I had my brief down to 5 minutes, plus or minus 5 seconds. But now I can talk a little slower, and we can have a little more fun with it, so that's excellent. Okay, next slide. Okay, there's a couple of weird things there. A couple more slides. One more. Okay, this is the airplane that we're building right now. Okay, so this aircraft can take off and land vertically, just like a normal helicopter. So anyway, think any sort of helipad or any prepared surface, and it can land vertically just like a helicopter as well. En route, it has some pretty cool technology and allows it to basically fly like a normal aircraft for 98% of the mission. So if you don't remember anything else, and like I said, you fade into kind of the lull of the post-lunch sugar sort of crash, think of a helicopter that is literally twice as fast, saves about 75% of unit cost, or sorry, of cost per unit mile. So every mile that it goes, it's 75% cheaper than a helicopter. It is a lot safer, a lot more comfortable to ride in, and a lot quieter. And if I had a mic, I would drop it, but that would be a little awkward right now. But so that's it. I'll tell you a little bit more about the technology and how we're doing it, and how we have a pretty bright future. Next slide. Oh, actually, no. Stay on this slide, because the first slide is messed up. Okay, so how does it work? So our unique and patented technology is surrounding the wings and the canards that you see there, right? So we have 5 fans in each main wing. Those are electrically powered. And same with the canards, the mini wings at the front. There are 2 fans in the canards each. They're also electrically powered. Now, where does that electricity come from? It comes from a hybrid generator on board. So we do have a turbo generator on board that produces some electricity that gets rectified and gets sent to those fans. And also an onboard very small battery array in comparison to our competition. So that distributed electric propulsion system allows it to take off vertically. And then the fan at the back, the prop, is attached directly to a PT6 turbine engine, leveraging a fuel source that, by the way, is 20 to 30 times more energy dense than the best batteries. Not that I'm slinging arrows at anybody here. And once it accelerates to an acceptable speed, so above stall, those wings close. Slide, please. Just like that. For 98% of the mission, this aircraft is flying around just like a normal aircraft, leveraging control laws that are just the same as a normal aircraft. And by the way, if you want to fly it off a conventional aircraft or airport, you can do so. If you want to land at a conventional airport, you can also do so. It flies, again, just exactly like a normal airplane for 98% of the mission, and you can operate it logistically just like a normal aircraft. Again, so highly redundant. It's capable of conventional takeoff, short takeoff and landing, which is really interesting. We can talk about that later. And also vertical takeoff and landing. I like to foot stomp that because, again, most of the shots we have are of the aircraft with the wings closed, and so people tend to think it's just a normal airplane, which I love. Now, because we have our secret cheat code on board, which is again, just to speak very honestly, traditional fuel that leverages a 30 to 40 times, like I said, more energy-dense source than some of the best batteries, we can have some pretty significant performance advantages over our competition. So this space is, again, very exciting. They advance our mobility space, transforming the way we move around the air. A lot of the folks are focusing on all electric designs. That has some limitations. They're carrying between 2,000 and 3,000 pounds of batteries on board. That, unfortunately, limits their useful load, limits their speed. Having an energy source that's much more dense and a much more conventional package allows us to go faster, so about twice the speed of a normal eVTOL aircraft. 500 miles is about 4 to 5 times the range of some of them, and that's including, of course, the operational fuel reserves. And it can carry a lot more stuff, so 1,500 pounds of useful load is pretty significant in this category. It also can carry 7 people, so 6 in the back, 1 in the front, and it has a bunch of really, really cool configurations for medical evacuation, for military missions that we'll get into in a little bit, disaster relief, and again, a very just useful vehicle. As a hybrid electric vehicle, it can land anywhere there's a flat surface. It does not need charging infrastructure to exist. So if vertiport design with high power charging stations slightly lags the development, it doesn't matter. This airplane can go anywhere. And we're pretty excited about some of the missions it can do, and Tony is going to ask me lots about those later. I had a bunch more slides with all these missions in it, but like I said, it's all good. So that is our secret sauce. Instead of taking a if you build it, they will come approach, we said, hey, what makes the most sense with current technology, designing and building a machine that if I was an operator of a helicopter, I would want, right? Global helicopter fleet, about 70,000 helicopters take off and do work on a daily basis. 65% of those helicopters just go from one point to another, delivering a person from one point to another, delivering critical goods from one point to another. Maybe it's radioactive isotopes for cancer research. Maybe it's organs. Maybe it's people from the side of a road to a hospital. And having something that goes twice as fast, 75% cheaper to own and operate on a per mile basis is a pretty significant value proposition. And we're making some good progress. Next slide. So that is our prototype that has just completed its flight testing. That is not a tiny drone like it might look like. It is a 22-foot wingspan aircraft that weighs close to 600 pounds and is about 15 feet long, and we didn't crash it. It has performed amazing, and the transition, if everyone doesn't know, the transition from vertical flight to forward flight has historically been a very technically challenging thing for almost every company in this space. Joby, Archer, the multi-billion-dollar market caps that you see out there, Lilium, same thing. Ours was the most boring transition that you've ever seen in the history of transition to forward flight. And in aerospace, boring is awesome, right? Boring is safe, boring is predictable, and we are very excited about the performance of this aircraft that is, like I said, just completed successful flight testing. Now, what are we doing at this current moment? We are moving on to development of a full-scale aircraft. In 18 to 24 months, we will have a full-scale aircraft sitting in our hangar ready to do flight testing. Now, if anyone's paying attention to the market, other companies that are doing that at that scale have, let's say, anywhere from 10 to 200 times our market cap. And we're marching down that same path as kind of an eVTOL 2.0 company in a more practical fashion. So really excited, transitioning to the full-scale aircraft, proving out the technology, multiple milestones that we'll communicate along the way and succeed in. And like I said, in 18 to 24 months, we will have a full-scale aircraft ready to fly, which is pretty exciting. Next slide. I cut it off. That's unfortunate. So this is a really cool shot, by the way, of our airplane with the wings folded forward in the back of a C-17. So it's an aerospace and defense conference. A long time ago, we won an AFWERX DoD contract to help accelerate the development of our unique technology. One of 250 companies to pitch, 32 went down to Vegas, and we're one of 5 companies to actually win an AFWERX significant DoD contract. That put us on the radar for a lot of defense primes and the DoD down here in the US, and of course DND up north of the border in Canada. I flew jets in the Air Force for about 20 years. at the top, which was not that high. Anyway, I flew, I would plan and lead NATO coalition strike missions in training, right? So we would do really crazy missions where we'd go in and try to extract personnel recovery type missions. Maybe it's a down pilot across enemy lines. Maybe it was insertion of a special forces team or a casualty evacuation. I would have loved to have an airplane like this in the military, in the capability spectrum. So smaller than a V-22 Osprey, more agile, faster, and of course, a little bit cheaper to own and operate. An Osprey is what, 80,000 an hour, something like that? Tony? Yeah. And so just a really, really strong defense potential with this technology as well. And like I said, I would have loved to have this airplane. It would have solved so many things. Jets above are doing 500 to 700 miles an hour, and the helos that are going to drop people, they're barely, like I'm just wondering if my little display is frozen. They're not even going anywhere. I'm like, hey, are these guys actually going to do anything? Like, I'm just kidding, yeah. But so I would have loved to have that technology, and like I said, we're talking to a lot of interested parties for that tech. Next slide. Okay, I think that was my 5 minutes out of the 25. Appreciate the opportunity, Tony. Thank you.
That was wonderful, Brandon. Thank you.
Do you want me to sit awkwardly beside you? Or?
Yeah, how about right here? We'll, okay. Air Force fighter guys and Marines can be close. It's okay.
I don't know about that. We'll see you at the end of this meeting.
Well, yeah. Well, that was a great overview, Brandon. There's so many questions to ask here. It's a pretty interesting topic, and it's sort of unusual what you guys are doing versus the rest of the industry. Maybe you could talk about your current position in the aerospace and defense industry, and what are the key milestones that you have achieved so far versus the other, let's call them 1.0, eVTOL 1.0.
Yeah, so the technical transition from vertical flight through to horizontal flight on a relevant size machine was a pretty big deal for us, right? There's many different proofs that we can get into, but actually flying a real machine that is of sufficient size, getting good data, and proving that the underlying technology is going to work and the concept makes sense, that was a pretty big deal for us. That being said, now moving on to the full-scale aircraft, if you walked in the hangar now, you'd see full-scale propulsion units spinning up. You'd see the wing mechanism working, gathering data, making sure that on the full-scale aircraft, the technology is going to work properly. And so far, it's been really positive. We recently just changed 2 torque sensors because we didn't really believe how low torque we were using to get the requisite amount of thrust, like 800 pounds from each of the fan units. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty interesting. A lot of innovation going on there. Could you maybe just go into a little more detail? You glossed over a little bit, but just how different in your model is using the hybrid eVTOL technology for competitors in aerospace. Maybe talking about, you talked about energy density being one of them, and then just your wing technology. Just maybe the rest of the audience is familiar with, again, eVTOL 1.0 and how you really are a true differentiator there.
Yeah. So. First of all, we're really excited about these all-electric machines, right? The Jobies and the Archers of the world. They're going to do some really good work. When we took a deep dive into the tech, we realized, there's a lot of assumptions that stack up from a technical perspective. And when you layer on operational requirements, fuel reserves, energy reserves, there would be some operational limitations, at least in the short to medium term, until battery technology matured a little bit. We just asked ourselves, first of all, what kind of concept would we love to put our kids in and feel safe in the back seat? And what would an operator love to have? A machine that, again, saves 75% per unit mile, has multiple layers of redundancy and safety. And so that hybrid technology allows a few things. One, it can operate, again, just as a foot stomper, completely independent of any of the high-power charging infrastructure that the other folks require, right? So not only do they have to build aircraft that are operationally focused, then they have to also land them at places where they can turn them quickly and get them back in the air. Our system, once it takes off, en route for about 8 to 12 minutes, it has a fully recharged main battery bank. And so you can start your landing phase at full battery power. And if you land somewhere remote that doesn't have the world's longest extension cord, you can literally just idle the aircraft and by the time you've filled it with people and stuff,
Right. It's recharged.
yeah, it's recharged, and away you go. So in many ways, we thought the hybrid system just made a lot more sense, mechanically very sound, and like I said, leveraging a fuel source that's 20 to 40 times more energy dense seemed like a smart thing for a flying machine.
Yeah, sort of a no. I mean, I guess when things are on the ground, weight doesn't matter as much, but when things take off, there's a lot of issues with weight, of course. You know, you've talked about all these advantages, which they seem pretty sizable. What about challenges that you're seeing? How maybe you compare to the other eVTOLs or just the other competitors as far as like helicopters? How do you see the challenges stacking up?
Yeah, so and we're pretty honest with folks. There's some significant technical challenges moving forward with this type of technology. I mean, when our aircraft did that full wing transition, it's the first aircraft in history to do it like that. Period. Dot. There's been other tilt ring and tilt rotor mechanisms. And so with that comes some very specific technical challenges that we could talk about, the amount of weight in the wings and low frequency oscillations that could potentially be impactful to a flight control system. But for the most part, we're pretty happy about how it's all kind of working out. On the structural side, again, on the wings and on the main fuselage, there's a lot of sort of bending moments that we have to take care of. But again, with that extra, I should say, engineering buffer that's brought by that hybrid system, we're not so critical on mass. We can plus up on a few things. A good example is the gear, right? So we can make a gear where it's stressed to land on a normal on a normal airport. Otherwise, if we were so weight dependent because we had 40% of our entire weight in batteries, then we would be looking for every single ounce. We still are looking for every single ounce, but we have a little bit of technical room for maneuver, if that makes sense.
That's good. There's a lot of things to think about, but like you said, you've got a much better buffer. Looking ahead, maybe we could talk about growth plans that New Horizon has over the next 5 years in terms of revenue and market share. Again, I know we're just starting out here. There's a big window to go through, but how do you see this playing out over the next 5 years?
Well, I can tell you something we're not doing. I mean, I could have sold 2,000 of these airplanes on paper already with loosely binding LOIs. We are looking for really, really solid partners. But listen, I mean, if the airplane works the way we say it's going to work, or even close, and we can save anywhere from 60 to 75% per unit mile, and basically build a faster, cheaper, safer, quieter helicopter for that 65% of the global fleet that just goes from one point to the other, we're not so worried about demand. I mean, I think it's a classic business case on product market fit. The better you understand the operators, and I mean, I come from a very operational background. We're not a university think tank sort of company that has a fancy bunch of renderings. The better you understand the operator, the better you can tailor a machine that is essentially, like I said, a better mousetrap. And it will be used, and there will be high demand for it. I mean, I would, if I was a global lessor that had a fleet of 150, 427s or whatever kind of helicopter you want to pick, I would be very interested in talking to us about a machine, again, that operators are going to be clamoring to get a hold of, when it becomes available.
Yeah, maybe I'll go off script here really quick, but that's a good question. It was brought up earlier with Albany. I don't know if you heard that, but they were asking about what is the customer acceptance, their thought process. Where are we right now in the eVTOL space of, people actually thinking about this? Where would you say, what inning are we of, at some point this is all going to work?
Analogy.
Yeah,
I love it.
Right.
I'm a Blue Jays fan. Sorry. Apologize.
Sorry.
You're sorry. Yeah, exactly. So it's an exciting time.
Yeah.
We back up like 3 or 4 years, and we were not certain, the advanced air mobility space was not certain whether these machines could even be certified, right? 2117 Bravo is the framework in the FAA that allows for certification, type certification of these aircraft. In Canada, we're working on it. EASA has their SC VTOL. These things have all coalesced from a regulatory framework in the last, call it 3 to 4 years. That's fantastic. So rewind, not sure if it's possible. Fast forward to 2025. And there will be certified aircraft flying in the advanced air mobility space very soon. Joby first, Archer next, and a few other companies that are maybe under the radar, Wisk. And so that's a pretty exciting time. Yeah. So it's no longer a giant stream of question marks. It's going to happen. Now, the true question is, what operational utility would they have? And people are asking a lot more detailed and tough questions like yourself about how the business cases really come together given the performance of the aircraft writ large and distilled in 2025.
Yeah. I'll go off script one more time, but you know, we talked about this when we first met on the phone. You know, if we go back 100 years and they have the technology that you have, there's no question they would be building these versus, you know, Mr. Sikor, would be building these. That's
correct.
Right. So with that being said, I know you need business use cases and there's all this economics and scale that go into it, and you know. But if we were to go back and say, let's just build them this way, you know, when do you think this is going to overtake, you know, the traditional vertical lift takeoff industry?
And so,
I mean, when do you think it's going to be accepted where it just doesn't make sense to have a bucket of bolts, you know what I mean, taking off?
That's a great question. Yeah. And for this, the answer is kind of a story. So I'll tell a bit of a story if that's okay. I recently was staring down the barrel of another regional trip. So I had to drive to Pearson International Airport, and that took me 2.5 hours. I had to get there 2 hours ahead of time. I had to go through security and go to the back room and strip naked, all that sort of good stuff. Finally, I got through the whole thing, and I flew 2 hours to another place. And then I reversed the process, got a rental car, and drove to the place that I wanted to be. And it's just brutal. And then I discovered the miracle of Porter Airlines out of Billy Bishop Airport. And I drove the same distance to Billy Bishop. It's a regional airline. Walked in, they wanted me down, took me 2 seconds to get through security. They handed me a vodka and soda, and I was on the airplane like I imagined it would be to travel in the 1970s. And that would have been a good time to be alive from an air travel perspective. So awesome. And I got right to where I was going, right? There's a really interesting NASA research paper out there that talks about the 5,000 underutilized airports in the United States alone that are regional in nature. They talk about, to get to a major hub, the average American goes 2 hours by car to get to a major hub. For these regional airports, if they were activated and they could fly people from point to point, they're within 15 to 20 minutes of any individual's home, right? So you can, call it 30 minutes, travel to the regional airport and get to where you wanted to go. That's how it used to be. For efficiency reasons and for convenience reasons on the major airlines, it's more of a hub and spoke method that is really inconvenient and annoying for travelers. So writ large, if you're thinking 20 or 30 years down the road, not even call it a decade, this offers an opportunity to reactivate some of those regional airports and really redefine what it's like at a region, what regional travel is for the consumer. I think that's where it starts. If you give people a viable option that is economic and is more convenient for them, they will take that option.
Yeah. And all the safety that goes with it, like you said, your child, you'd be comfortable your child flying in it. It's a no-brainer.
Yep.
Maybe I'll open up to the audience, questions to the audience.
So I was just looking, doesn't look like much, if any, debt at all. Oh, thanks. Doesn't look like much, if any, debt at all on the balance sheet, which is
Zero.
Yep, which is a great thing to see for your stage right now. But
Yep.
Are you guys going to have to go to the markets here to, as you get closer to commercial? Are you guys going to have to take on some debt, do an equity raise? What's kind of the plan there? Are you happy with the cash you have right now? Just curious about that.
So great question, as always. And I guess asked this a lot, so I have my canned answers, but this crowd seems into a little more useful information. So I'll answer that simply yes, we will have to raise more. Now, look at our track record in comparison to some of our peers and their trajectory. We're taking a very capital efficient approach. We don't have a 100-man marketing team that is out, or 100-person marketing team that's out there pushing the stock on a daily basis, kicking out a bunch of fancy renderings. We don't have a government lobbying arm. We're not spending any money on establishing the regulatory frameworks that now have coalesced for us and we can take advantage of. So in many ways, being that 2.0 company that can come and take advantage of all of the good work that the previous companies have put in, we can proceed in, again, a much more capital efficient manner. So will we have to raise more? Yes. Will we do it in a very responsible manner? Yes. Do we have some strategic backers that we're very, very fortunate to have on the financial side? Absolutely, and that gives us a lot of options. My number one goal is to raise in the most responsible manner possible and keep in mind the are each and every single valuable shareholder that decides to put money into or put faith into the company, essentially.
I mean, that's part of the growth company, right? That's part of the business. You know, how is the company planning to scale its operations to meet this anticipated growth? I mean, it must seem like an overwhelming thing to start growing at scale, and maybe it probably relates to his question as well. How are you foresee that playing out?
So in short, people and partnerships. So it's really exciting. On the people side, we are hiring the best people from around the world. It's pretty incredible. You can look at the roster if you want on our website. We have a lot of open positions, but we are hiring only the best. And now we have the advantage of 4 or 5 years of people struggling through some of the all-electric architectures and some folks that have really been at the leading edge of aerospace and electrification. And we get to take advantage of their experience and build kind of a leaner machine, if that makes any sense. Yeah. So that's the people side. So hiring lots of folks. It's awesome. We're building a team. That's the first thing we're doing. The next thing we're doing is partnerships. And this could be a 20-minute conversation, but I'm acutely aware of my OCD brain looking at the 246 and counting down. Time on target. On the partnership side, we're partnering with folks that know what they're doing. So we're talking to operators with boots on the ground. We're talking to special forces guys that actually that operate these things. We're learning viscerally about exactly what is required and making sure that we partner with the right folks to then establish a profitable network. So how do you make money in aerospace? You sell a really good product, and more importantly, you support that network. So MR&O activities, making sure supply chains are sorted out, there's enough parts that go to the right spots, and that is high-quality partnerships that really make that clock tick in the right way.
Yeah, that's good. You talked about that, and you talked about Department of Defense versus commercial, and obviously you have dual use here. Do you think that's maybe the market to go to first, to penetrate first, is the Department of Defense and going through that way, or what are your thoughts on the best strategy? Yeah,
that's actually a really astute question. The easy answer would be for me to say, okay, we're just going to develop the aircraft, and then at one point we'll sell a bunch to the military and sell a bunch to the civilian world. The true answer is that you have to bifurcate the development process earlier than you might think. The military requirements, they're price sensitive, but it has to work, and it has to have a very specific amount of hardening that is done to make it a useful machine in the military world. And that's a big decision for a company, right? Do I bifurcate the focus and then develop 2 separate aircraft? And I think some companies have maybe underestimated that. The military comes with a bunch of support, but also a very greedy set of requirements that are, quite frankly, immovable objects. It has to be able to do a certain thing. We are looking at that very closely, and I have the advantage of living in the Department of Defense D&D equivalent for quite some time, and I was in procurement for just 3 years. There's still a spot on my head right here where I banged my head off the desk for 3 years, not flying. And so I've seen the inside of how that works. But yeah, so very focused on the defense angle. It just makes sense. A faster helicopter capability that's twice as fast and a lot safer and quieter is very attractive in the military side. And then the civilian side, of course, for all the reasons I've previously mentioned, it's very much a dual-use machine.
Brandon, that was a really good overview. It was really interesting, and I'm looking forward to following you guys. I follow it pretty closely, and you guys are special in the sense of what you're doing. So looking forward to following you, and hopefully get you back next year.
Yeah, thanks, Tony.
Great
That's
job.
been great. Really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Investors should carefully consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the ETF before investing. The prospectus, which contains more complete information about this and other matters, should be read carefully before investing. To obtain a prospectus, please call 800 Gabelli or visit www.gabelli.com. Risks to the ETF include a downturn in commercial air travel, production and/or supply chain disruptions, decreases in defense spending, subcontractor financial health, and competition and/or technology changes.